The gift box. Father's Day was supposed to be perfect, until I found the box on the beach and realized someone had been watching my family for a very long time. My name is Kevin, and I'm a father of 2 amazing kids. Emma's 8, always asking questions about everything, and Tyler's 5, still young enough to think I know all the answers. My wife Sarah had planned this whole day at Crescent Bay Beach, our first family trip since I got laid off from the engineering firm 3 months ago. Money was tight, but Sarah insisted we needed this. The kids need to see their dad smile again, she said. And she was right. I've been carrying the weight of unemployment like a stone in my chest, barely sleeping, checking job boards until 2 a.m. every night. But that morning, walking along the waterline with my family, I felt lighter than I had in months. Emma was collecting shells, Tyler was chasing seagulls, and Sarah was taking photos of everything. Just a normal family having a normal day at the beach. That's when I spotted it. About 50 yards ahead, half buried in the sand where the tide had receded, was a small wooden box. It was wrapped in faded green cloth and tied with yellow string, like an old-fashioned gift. "Dad, what's that?" Emma asked, pointing at the box. "Probably just trash that washed up," I said, but something about it felt intentional. Like it had been placed there specifically for us to find. Tyler ran ahead. "It looks like a present." "Don't touch it," Sarah called out, but I was already walking toward it. Call it curiosity, call it stupidity, but finding a mysterious package on Father's Day felt like the universe trying to tell me something. I picked it up carefully. It was heavier than I expected, and the wood felt old, weathered by salt and time. The green cloth was tied tight with that yellow string. "Is it for you, Dad?" Tyler asked, bouncing on his toes with excitement. I looked at Sarah. She shrugged, but I could see the concern in her eyes. "Let's open it and find out." I untied the string carefully. The cloth fell away to reveal a simple pine box, maybe 6 inches square. There was no writing on it, no indication of where it had come from. Inside the box was strange. A small folding knife, the blade pitted with rust, a single gray feather, dried grass, lavender, sage, and what smelled like tobacco, and wrapped in a stained piece of cloth. I unfolded the cloth slowly, and my stomach lurched. It was a human toe, severed cleanly, preserved, but obviously old. The nail was cracked and yellowed, the skin mottled with decay. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, dropping the box. Sarah grabbed the kids, pulling them back. "Kevin, what is it?" "Call 911, I said, my voice shaking. "Now." But as I looked around the beach, trying to make sense of what I'd found, I noticed something else that made my blood run cold. About 20 feet away, a dead seagull lay in the sand. Its body had been arranged. Wings spread wide, neck twisted at an unnatural angle, and one of its feathers was missing. The same gray feather that was in the box. "Dad, are you okay?" Emma asked, her voice small and frightened. I forced myself to smile, to sound calm. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just some old junk someone left behind." But it wasn't junk. Someone had carefully assembled this box. Someone had killed that seagull, severed that toe, gathered those herbs, and wrapped it all up like a gift. Someone had left it exactly where they knew I'd find it. The police arrived within 20 minutes. Officer Martinez was professional but skeptical as I explained what we'd discovered. "So, you just found it?" he asked, photographing the box and its contents. "Right here in the sand. Looked like it had washed up with the tide." He made notes, bagged everything as evidence, assured us they'd investigate. But I could see in his eyes that he thought this was either a prank or the work of some disturbed beachgoer. What he didn't know, what I didn't tell him, was that this wasn't the first strange thing I'd found lately. 2 weeks earlier, while walking through Riverside Park during one of my unemployment-induced insomnia walks, I discovered a similar arrangement. A circle of stones with dead flowers in the center and what looked like drops of dried blood on the rocks. A week before that, someone had left a paper bag on our front porch. Inside was a collection of newspaper clippings, all missing person reports from the past year. People who'd vanished without a trace from towns within 50 miles of our home. I'd thrown the bag away, told myself it was some kid's idea of a prank. But the clippings had one thing in common. All the missing people were fathers. Men between 30 and 45 with young children. Men like me. That night, after the kids were asleep, I told Sarah about the other incidents. "Kevin, why didn't you mention this before?" "Because I thought I was being paranoid. Unemployment stress, you know, making connections that weren't really there." But Sarah's face was pale in the lamplight. "The toe," she said quietly. "Did you notice anything familiar about it?" I hadn't, but now that she mentioned it, what do you mean? "The scar. There was a scar across the knuckle, like from an old injury." My heart stopped, because I knew exactly what scar she was talking about. I have the same scar. From a lawnmower accident when I was 12. A thin white line across the knuckle of my big toe. "It's a coincidence," I said, but my voice cracked. Sarah disappeared into our bedroom and came back with her laptop. She'd been researching the missing men from those newspaper clippings. "Look at this," she said, showing me the screen. "David Chen, disappeared 6 months ago. Father of 2, recently unemployed." She clicked to another article. "Marcus Williams vanished 4 months ago. Recently laid off, 2 young kids." Another click. "Robert Santos, missing for 8 months. Lost his job last winter, has a 5-year-old daughter." The pattern was obvious now. Someone was targeting unemployed fathers, following them, studying them, collecting trophies. "We need to call the police," Sarah said. But before I could answer, the lights went out. Not just in our house. The entire neighborhood was dark. Through the window I could see that even the streetlights had died. "Dad?" Emma's voice called from upstairs. "I'm scared." "Stay with the kids," I whispered to Sarah, grabbing a flashlight from the kitchen drawer. That's when I heard it. A soft scratching sound coming from our back door. I crept through the dark house, flashlight beam dancing ahead of me. The scratching continued, rhythmic, deliberate, like someone trying to carve something into the wood. I reached the back door and listened. The scratching stopped. Slowly, I unlocked the door and stepped outside. Our backyard was empty, but there on the door, carved fresh into the paint, was a message. "The collection is almost complete." Below it was a symbol I didn't recognize, a circle with lines radiating out from the center like a child's drawing of the sun. I ran back inside, locked every door and window, and called 911. But when the police arrived 30 minutes later, the message was gone. The door was unmarked, pristine. "Sir, are you sure you saw something?" Officer Martinez asked, the same cop from the beach incident. "It's been a stressful day. Sometimes our minds play tricks." But I knew what I'd seen. And I knew Sarah had seen it too, even though she stayed quiet while the police were there. After they left, we huddled together in the living room with all the lights on. "We're leaving," I said. "Tonight. We'll pack some bags and drive to your sister's place in Portland." "Kevin, maybe we should think about this rationally. Someone is hunting unemployed fathers, Sarah. They have my toe. They carved a message on our door. There's nothing rational about this." We were packing when Emma came downstairs, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. "Dad, there's a man in the yard." My blood turned to ice. "What man, sweetheart?" "He's just standing there, looking at the house." I grabbed the baseball bat from the closet and looked out Emma's bedroom window. There was a figure standing at the edge of our yard, perfectly still in the shadows between streetlights. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like a long coat. As I watched, he raised one hand in a slow wave. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness between houses. We left immediately, threw clothes into bags, loaded the kids into the car, and drove through the night to Sarah's sister's place 3 hours away. But here's the thing that's been eating at me for the past 2 weeks. The man in our yard wasn't a stranger. I'd seen him before. In old family photos standing in the background at Emma's birthday party last year. In the security footage from Tyler's school, watching from across the street during pickup time. He'd been watching us for months, learning our routines, studying our family, collecting information for his collection. Sarah thinks I'm becoming obsessed, that the stress of unemployment is making me paranoid. But yesterday, I found another box. This one was sitting on the front steps of Sarah's sister's house. Same green cloth, same yellow string. Inside was a child's drawing, the kind Emma makes in art class. Stick figures of our family standing in front of our house. But in the drawing, I wasn't there. Just Sarah and the kids, with a dark figure standing where I should be. And written at the bottom in Emma's careful handwriting, "Daddy's new job." Sarah says Emma didn't draw it. Says she's never seen it before. But I know my daughter's artwork. I know her handwriting. Someone got to her. Even here, 3 hours away from home, someone found us. Tonight, I'm going back to Crescent Bay Beach. Back to where I found the first box. Because I understand now what's happening. The boxes aren't threats. They're invitations. Someone wants to meet me. Wants to show me what happened to all those other fathers. And maybe that's the only way to protect my family. Sarah's asleep now. The kids, too. I've left them a note explaining everything. Told them to stay here no matter what happens to me. I'm driving back to that beach, and I'm going to wait. Because the collection isn't complete yet. And I think I know what the final piece is supposed to be. The greatest horror isn't what's waiting in the darkness. It's realizing that the darkness has been waiting for you. And it knows exactly how much you're willing to sacrifice to protect the people you love.
The line in the sky. I moved to Millfield Harbor because I thought a small coastal town would be peaceful. Turns out, some places are quiet for very specific reasons. My name is Dorothy, and I'm a meteorologist. After 15 years of chasing storms across the Midwest, I was burned out. When the National Weather Service offered me a position at their small monitoring station in Maine, I jumped at the chance. Millfield Harbor was exactly what I'd imagined. Population 847, one main street, lobster boats bobbing in a picture-perfect harbor. The kind of place where everyone waves when you drive by, and the biggest excitement is the weekly town council meeting. I rented a cottage on Elm Street, 3 blocks from the weather station, and settled into a routine that felt like retirement at 35. Morning coffee, while checking overnight data, afternoon walks along the harbor, early bedtimes with the sound of waves outside my window. For 6 months, it was perfect. Then Bobby disappeared. Roberta Sado. Everyone called her Bobby. She was homeless, but in a small town like Millfield Harbor, that just meant she slept in different places and relied on the kindness of neighbors. The local church fed her. Mary's Diner let her wash dishes for meals, and most people knew her by name. She was a fixture. As permanent as the lighthouse, as reliable as the tides. Until she wasn't. I first heard about it at the post office. Carol behind the counter was talking to Mrs. Henderson about how Bobby hadn't been seen in 3 days. She always stops by the church on Sundays, Mrs. Henderson was saying. Never missed a service in 2 years. Pastor Williams is worried sick. Maybe she moved on, Carol suggested. Homeless folks do that sometimes. But Mrs. Henderson shook her head. Not Bobby. This is her home. Something's wrong. I didn't think much about it then. People drift in and out of small towns all the time. But that afternoon, while I was calibrating equipment at the weather station, I noticed something odd in the satellite data. There was an atmospheric anomaly over Millfield Harbor from 3 days ago, right around the time Bobby was last seen. A vertical disturbance that showed up on infrared but not visible spectrum, like a column of air that was somehow different from the surrounding atmosphere. I'd never seen anything like it. I spent the evening analyzing the data, cross-referencing with historical records. The anomaly lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes, then vanished without a trace. But here's what bothered me. 4 hours and 17 minutes was also the gap in Bobby's last known whereabouts. She was seen leaving the church around 2 p.m., and the next confirmed sighting would have been at the diner around 6:17 p.m. for dinner. Except she never showed up for dinner. I told myself it was coincidence. Weather anomalies don't make people disappear. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. The next week, I started paying more attention to the local gossip. Millfield Harbor was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, so when someone went missing, the entire town felt it. Turns out, Bobby wasn't the first. Over coffee at Mary's Diner, I listened to the regulars discuss other disappearances. Always the same pattern. People vanished during broad daylight, leaving behind personal items. No signs of struggle. "Remember old Frank Morrison," said Pete. A lobsterman with weathered hands wrapped around his coffee mug. "Went out to check his traps 2 years ago. Found his boat drifting empty, lunch still warm on the deck." "And Sarah Chen," added Mary, refilling my cup. "Left her grocery store unlocked, keys on the counter like she'd just stepped out for a minute. That was 18 months ago." "Don't forget the Williamson boy," Mrs. Henderson chimed in. "Disappeared right from the playground while his mother was pushing his sister on the swings. She turned around and he was just gone. 5 people in 2 years. In a town of 847, that was statistically impossible. Unless something was systematically removing residents. That night, I went back through all my weather data for the past 2 years. I found them. Atmospheric anomalies corresponding to each disappearance. Always the same vertical disturbance. Always lasting between 4 and 5 hours. Always appearing directly over the last known location of the missing person. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe unusual weather patterns caused disorientation, leading to accidents. Maybe the anomalies were just equipment malfunctions coinciding with unrelated disappearances. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. The next anomaly appeared on a Tuesday morning in October. I was reviewing overnight data when the sensors started detecting the same vertical disturbance I'd seen before. This time, it was forming over Harbor Street, right in the middle of town. I grabbed my equipment and ran outside. The sky was crystal clear, not a cloud in sight. But there, stretching from the ground to as high as I could see, was a perfect black line. It wasn't smoke or shadow. It was like someone had drawn a mark across reality itself with a Sharpie. I took photos, recorded measurements, called my supervisor at the National Weather Service. But even as I was documenting it, I knew no one would believe me. The line stood there for exactly 4 hours and 16 minutes. Then, as I watched through my binoculars, it simply faded away. That evening, I walked through town asking if anyone else had seen it. Most people looked at me like I was losing my mind. But Mrs. Henderson gave me a strange look. "You saw the line too?" she asked quietly. "Two?" She glanced around, making sure we were alone on her front porch. "I've been seeing them for 2 years. Every time someone goes missing, a black line in the sky, standing there like it's waiting for something. Why didn't you tell anyone?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You tried telling people you saw an impossible line in the sky right before your neighbor vanished. See how long it takes them to start talking about your mental health." We talked for another hour. Mrs. Henderson had been keeping her own records, noting the exact times and locations of the lines. Her data matched mine perfectly. "The question is," she said as I prepared to leave, "who's going to disappear this time?" I found out the next morning. Janet Mills, the town librarian, hadn't shown up to open the library. Her car was in the parking lot, keys in the ignition, but no sign of Janet anywhere. The black line had appeared directly over the library. I spent the rest of the week researching similar phenomena in other coastal towns. What I found made my hands shake as I typed. Millfield Harbor wasn't unique. Small communities all along the Atlantic seaboard were reporting mysterious disappearances. Always the same pattern, people vanishing during daylight hours, leaving behind personal items, no witnesses. But I was the only meteorologist documenting the atmospheric anomalies. Because I was the only one looking, I tried to warn the remaining townspeople, sent emails to local news stations, called the state police, even reached out to university researchers who specialized in atmospheric phenomena. No one took me seriously. A small-town weather monitor claiming that mysterious skylines were somehow connected to missing people. It sounded like the ravings of someone who'd spent too much time alone. The lines kept appearing. Always 4 to 5 hours long, always followed by a disappearance. The town was getting smaller. Last month, I decided to try something dangerous. When the next anomaly appeared, I was going to position myself directly underneath it. If something was taking people during these events, I wanted to see what it was. The line formed on a Wednesday morning over Maple Street. I packed my equipment, wrote a letter explaining everything I'd discovered, and walked to the coordinates. Standing directly under the black line was indescribable. The air felt thick, heavy, like breathing underwater. There was a sound, just at the edge of hearing, like voices whispering in a language I didn't recognize. And I wasn't alone. They were standing around me in a perfect circle. All the missing people. Bobby, Frank, Sarah, the others. But they weren't quite right. Their movements were too fluid. Their eyes reflected light like animals in headlights. "Dorothy," Bobby said, and her voice sounded like wind through empty buildings. "We've been waiting for you." "Waiting for me? You're the one who sees the lines, who documents our harvests. You're supposed to be the witness." "Harvests?" Frank stepped forward, his fisherman's coat dripping with something that wasn't quite water. "This town is a feeding ground. Has been for decades. We collect the lonely ones, the isolated ones, the ones no one will miss." "But people do miss you," I protested. "The whole town is talking about the disappearances." Sarah laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Are they? Check your records, Dorothy. Check how many people are really left." I looked around the circle of missing people, and with growing horror, I realized she was right. The town wasn't getting smaller because people were disappearing. The town was never big to begin with. 847 residents? I'd been accepting that number without question. But when I actually tried to count the people I'd met, the houses that were occupied, the businesses that were actually running, maybe 50 people, maybe less. "The lines aren't taking people away," Bobby explained. "They're bringing us back, returning us to our roles as residents of Millfield Harbor. Until the next harvest," Frank added, "when we select someone new to join us." I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The black line above us was pulsing now, like a heartbeat. "Don't be afraid," Sarah said. "You like it here. You already do, don't you? So peaceful, so quiet." She was right. Even knowing what I knew now, part of me did love this place. The routine, the simplicity, the feeling of belonging to something. "Just let go," Bobby whispered. "Let the line take you home." The last thing I remember was looking up at that impossible black line and realizing it wasn't a line at all. It was a doorway. I'm writing this from my cottage on Elm Street, 3 blocks from the weather station. I've been living in Millfield Harbor for 6 months now, and it's exactly what I'd imagined. Population, 847. 1 Main Street. Lobster boats bobbing in a picture-perfect harbor. Tomorrow, another meteorologist is coming to take over my position. Something about atmospheric anomalies that need investigating. I've left all my research for her to find. The data about the lines, the patterns, the missing people. She seems like the curious type, the kind of person who won't let mysteries go unsolved. I think she'll fit in perfectly here. The line will appear for her soon enough. And when it does, we'll all be waiting to welcome her home. Some places aren't meant to be found. They're meant to find you. And once they do, you'll discover that leaving was never really an option.
The injection game. I never should have gone to that club in Lyon, but after 3 months of isolation during my study abroad program, I was desperate for human connection. My name's Marcus, and I was 21, studying international business at the University of Lyon. My French was terrible, my social life was non-existent, and my parents kept calling asking why I sounded so depressed. The truth was, I'd barely left my tiny apartment except for classes. So when my roommate Antoine invited me to Club Neon for their underground house night, I said yes. The place was exactly what you'd expect. Pulsing music, strobing lights, bodies packed so tight you couldn't move without touching someone. I nursed a beer in the corner for the first hour, watching Antoine work the crowd like he owned the place. Then she approached me. Tall, blonde, wearing a black dress that seemed to absorb the neon lights around us. She spoke perfect English with just a hint of accent. "You look lonely," she said, leaning close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something sweet and sharp at the same time. "Just not much of a dancer," I replied, trying to sound casual. She laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Dancing is just moving to music, but there are other games we could play." Before I could ask what she meant, she was already pulling me deeper into the crowd. Her hand was cold, unnaturally cold, but I followed anyway. We ended up near the bar where she ordered something I'd never heard of, some green cocktail that glowed under the black lights. She handed me one. "To new experiences," she said, raising her glass. I should have been more careful. Should have watched her make the drinks, should have asked more questions. But the music was loud. She was beautiful, and I'd been alone for so long. We talked for maybe an hour. At least, I think we did. The details are fuzzy now, like trying to remember a dream. She asked about my studies, my family back home, why I seemed so isolated. I remember feeling dizzy around midnight. The room started spinning, and I had to grab onto the bar to keep from falling. "Are you okay?" she asked, but her voice sounded different now. Colder. Clinical. I think I need some air." She helped me outside, one arm around my waist, supporting my weight. The cool night air should have helped, but the dizziness was getting worse. "Just sit here for a moment," she said, guiding me to a bench in the alley beside the club. I sat down heavily, my head spinning. That's when I felt it, a sharp pinch on my upper arm. Like a bee sting, but more deliberate. "What was that?" I mumbled, looking down at my arm. She was already standing up, dropping something small and metallic into her purse. "Just a little experiment," she said. "Don't worry, you won't remember much of this tomorrow." The last thing I saw before everything went black was her smile. It wasn't the warm, inviting smile from earlier. It was the smile of someone who'd just accomplished exactly what they'd set out to do. I woke up in my apartment the next afternoon with the worst hangover of my life. My head was pounding, my mouth felt like sandpaper, and there was a bruise on my arm with a tiny puncture wound in the center. Antoine was already gone, probably at his morning classes. I stumbled to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked like hell, but that wasn't unusual after a night out. What was unusual was that I couldn't remember getting home. Or most of the night, really. Fragments came back. The blonde woman dancing, feeling dizzy. But everything after midnight was just gone. I almost dismissed it as a bad reaction to whatever I'd been drinking. College kids black out all the time, right? But that puncture wound bothered me. So I did something stupid. I posted about it on social media. "Anyone else get weirdly sick at Club Neon last night? Found a needle mark on my arm this morning and can't remember the last few hours. Probably just me being paranoid, but..." The responses started coming in within hours. "Leia from my French class. Holy shit, the same thing happened to my friend last month. She woke up with injection marks and missing time. A guy named Thomas. Dude, this is happening all over France. Check the news. A girl named Sophie. My sister got jabbed at a club in Bordeaux. Still having nightmares about it." I spent the rest of the day going down a rabbit hole of news articles and social media posts. Hundreds of people, mostly young women, reporting similar experiences. Mysterious injections at clubs, missing time, no memory of what happened. The police were investigating, but they had no suspects and no clear motive. Most victims tested negative for common date, violated a dangerous addiction. Whatever was being injected seemed to leave the system quickly, but the psychological effects lingered. I started having dreams that night. Vivid, hyperreal dreams where I was back in that alley, but instead of the blonde woman, there were dozens of people surrounding me, all of them holding syringes, all of them smiling that same cold clinical smile. In the dreams, I could see what they were injecting. It wasn't a drug, it was something alive, something that squirmed and pulsed as it entered my bloodstream. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, checking my arm for new injection sites. The dreams got worse over the following weeks. More detailed, more real. I started sleepwalking, something I'd never done before. Antoine would find me standing in our kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at the knives in the drawer. "Marcus, you're scaring me," he said one morning over coffee. "Maybe you should see someone, a doctor, or..." But I couldn't explain to him what was happening, because I wasn't sure myself. The compulsion started small. An urge to walk to specific locations around the city at specific times. Street corners where I'd stand for exactly 13 minutes before feeling the need to leave. Then I started noticing others doing the same thing. People standing on street corners, all of them with that same distant look in their eyes. All of them staying for exactly 13 minutes before moving on. I began following them, mapping their routes. And slowly, a pattern emerged. We were all moving in a specific sequence through the city. Like pieces on a chessboard, each person fulfilling their role in some larger design. The realization hit me while I was standing at my assigned corner near the university. As I watched another player take their position across the street, I suddenly understood what the injections were for. We weren't being drugged. We were being programmed. Whatever that woman had injected into me wasn't a chemical, it was instructions. A set of behavioral commands that activated during specific triggers. I tried to break the pattern, tried to stay home instead of going to my designated corner. But the compulsion was too strong. It felt like trying not to breathe, possible for a short time, but eventually your body takes over. The worst part was that I was still me. I could think clearly, analyze what was happening, even write about it. But I couldn't stop myself from participating. That's when I started researching the other victims more carefully, cross-referencing their social media posts with location data, looking for patterns. What I found made my blood run cold. We were all being positioned around key infrastructure points in the city. Power stations, water treatment facilities, government buildings. Not close enough to raise suspicion, but strategically placed to do something. I tried to warn people, posted everything I'd discovered online. But who was going to believe that hundreds of people were being turned into sleeper agents by mysterious injections at nightclubs? The posts were deleted within hours. My social media accounts were suspended. When I tried to call the police, the line went dead. Someone didn't want this information getting out. Last night, I received new instructions. Not through the usual compulsions. This time, it was a text message from an unknown number. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Corner of Rue de la République and Rue President Carnot. 11:47 p.m. Bring the item from your kitchen drawer. I knew exactly what item they meant. The one I'd been drawn to during my sleepwalking episodes. The knife. I'm writing this now because I don't think I'll be myself much longer. The compulsions are getting stronger, and I can feel something else taking root in my mind. A presence that whispers instructions in a voice that sounds almost like my own. Tomorrow night I'll join the others at designated points throughout Lyon. We'll each play our role in whatever this thing is that's been planned for us. I can see them now through my window, other victims walking through the streets with that same distant expression. All of us moving toward our positions like pieces on a board. The injection wasn't the end of the experiment. It was just the beginning. And I'm starting to understand that the blonde woman at the club wasn't working alone. This thing, whatever it is, it's much bigger than a few random attacks at nightclubs. It's coordinated, international, systematic. The needle attacks in France were just the first wave. I've been monitoring news from other countries. Similar reports from Belgium, Germany, the UK. Always the same pattern. Always targeting young people in crowded places. Building an army of programmable assets, one injection at a time. My phone is buzzing. Another text from that unknown number. Time to go, Marcus. Your role in Phase 2 is very important. My hand is already reaching for my jacket. The compulsion is too strong to resist now. But I want you to know, if you're reading this, if something happens tomorrow night in Lyon that makes international news, we didn't choose this. We were made into weapons against our will. And if mysterious injection attacks start happening in your city, if people begin reporting missing time and strange compulsions, run. Don't let them turn you into what they turned us into. Because once you're part of the game, there's no way out. The knife feels heavy in my pocket as I walk toward the door. See you at 11:47. The most insidious horror isn't the monster that chases you. It's the one that makes you chase others, convincing you it was your choice all along.
The vanishing point. I never thought I'd become obsessed with missing people, until I realized I might be one of them. It started when my sister Emma asked me to help find her friend Kara. Emma was always the social one, collecting strays and broken people like I collected vintage records. Kara Morrison was both, a single mother, 4 months pregnant, trying to make it work in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood. She just vanished. Sarah, Emma said, sitting in my cramped apartment, tears streaming down her face. One day she's dropping her daughter off at school, the next, nothing, like she never existed. I'm a freelance journalist, mostly doing fluff pieces for local magazines. But something about Kara's story grabbed me. Maybe it was the way Emma described her. Fierce, protective, would never abandon her children. The kind of person who doesn't just disappear. So I started digging. The police file was thin. Kara Morrison, 38, left her home on February 26th to drop her 4-year-old at school. Never made it to meet her son afterward. Phone went straight to voicemail. Car found 3 days later, 20 meters from her house with a parking ticket and some strange items inside. A jacket, money, and a crowbar. But here's what bothered me. The car was parked near someone's house. Someone Kara was known to have visited. The police never said who. That felt deliberate. I started calling around, talking to neighbors, school staff, anyone who might have seen something. That's when I found the pattern. Mrs. Rodriguez, who lived 2 blocks from the school, remembered seeing a woman matching Kara's description that morning. But she was walking away from the school, not toward it. And she wasn't alone. There was a man with her. Mrs. Rodriguez told me over coffee. Tall, thin, wearing a dark coat. They were walking together, but something felt wrong. The woman kept looking over her shoulder. The police never mentioned a man. I kept digging, and that's when I found Goldie. Goldie Moores, 38, vanished from Middletown, California, 6 months after Kara. Different state, different circumstances, but the details made my skin crawl. She disappeared while berry picking with a friend who went down a hill for just a few minutes. When he came back, nothing. Just her shoes and a drink. 2 38-year-old women. Both vanished in broad daylight. Both left behind items that made no sense. But Goldie's story got stranger. After she disappeared from the golf course, she was spotted all over town. Construction workers saw her around 10 p.m. asking to sit in their truck. A homeowner found her on his doorstep at 7:30 a.m., barefoot, asking to use his phone. She called someone, left a message when they didn't answer, then asked for shoes, and when the man turned to get them, she was gone. The last sighting put her on a highway, 7 miles from where she started. She'd only traveled 2 miles in 12 hours. A walk that should have taken 20 minutes. Like she was being led somewhere. Or following something only she could see. I started mapping the cases, looking for connections. That's when I found the others. Rebecca Santos, 34, Portland. Maria Chen, 41, Denver area. Jennifer Walsh, 29, Phoenix. All disappeared within the last 2 years. All around the same age. All left behind personal items in strange places. And all had one more thing in common. In the weeks before they vanished, people close to them reported the women acting different. Distracted. Like they were listening to something no one else could hear. I was building a wall of connections in my apartment, red string connecting photos and timeline markers, when Emma came by unannounced. She stopped in the doorway, staring at my makeshift investigation board. "Sarah, this is getting weird. Maybe you should take a break." But I couldn't stop, because I'd found something else. Something that made my hands shake as I printed out the records. All of these women had been reported missing by family members who said the same thing. She got a phone call the day before. Afterward, she seemed different. Kara had been arguing with someone on the phone the day before she disappeared. Her family said it was uncharacteristic. She was always friendly, never confrontational. Goldie's roommate mentioned she'd seemed distracted that morning, like she was thinking about something else. The others, similar stories. Phone calls, arguments, sudden personality changes. I started having nightmares. Dreams where I was walking down empty streets, following a voice that seemed familiar but wrong. In the dreams, I kept looking over my shoulder, just like Mrs. Rodriguez had described. That's when I decided to check my own phone records. It took 3 weeks to get them from the carrier, and when I did, my blood turned to ice. There, buried in the call log from 2 months ago, was a number I didn't recognize. The call lasted 47 minutes. I had no memory of it. I tried calling the number back. Disconnected. I checked my calendar, my journal. Anything that might explain what I was doing that day. Nothing. It was like 47 minutes of my life had just vanished. Emma found me that night, sitting on my kitchen floor, staring at the phone records. "Sarah, you're scaring me. When's the last time you slept? Or ate something?" I looked up at her, and for a moment, she looked different. Older. Tired. Like she'd been worried about me for much longer than she was letting on. "Emma, how long have I been working on this story?" She was quiet for too long. "Sarah, it's been 6 months. You've been obsessed with these missing women for 6 months. I've been trying to get you to stop, to see someone, but you won't listen." 6 months. That couldn't be right. I had started looking into Kara's case 3 weeks ago. Maybe 4. But when I looked at my investigation board, really looked at it, there were dozens of cases pinned up there. Hundreds of red string connections. Newspaper clippings yellowed with age. And in the center of it all was a photo I didn't remember printing. It was me. Standing on a street corner, looking over my shoulder, just like Mrs. Rodriguez had described. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 months ago, the same day as that mysterious phone call. Emma was talking, but her voice sounded far away. "Sarah, I need you to listen to me. You've been missing time. Whole days where I can't reach you. You'll call me back and act like nothing happened, but you're different afterward. Like you're listening to something I can't hear." I stared at the photo, at my own face looking terrified of something behind me. "Emma, who took this picture?" Her face went pale. "You don't remember? You sent it to me. Said someone was following you, that you needed help. When I got to the location, you were gone. You didn't answer your phone for 3 days." The room started spinning. I looked back at my investigation board, at all the red string connecting the missing women. Every single thread led back to that photo of me. "Sarah, Emma's voice was shaking now. What do you remember about that phone call? I closed my eyes, tried to think. Fragments came back, pieces of a conversation that felt like remembering a dream. A voice, familiar but wrong, asking questions about my work, my research into missing people, complimenting my thoroughness, asking if I'd like to help with something important. And I'd said yes. Whatever it was, I'd said yes. Emma, I think. The words stuck in my throat. I think I've been looking for these women because I was supposed to find them. Like I was following breadcrumbs? She grabbed my shoulders. Sarah, you're not making sense. But I was. For the first time in months, everything was crystal clear. What if they weren't taken randomly? What if they were chosen, contacted, convinced to help with something, led away step by step until I couldn't finish the thought, because I knew what came next. Until they vanished completely, leaving behind just enough evidence to make someone else curious. Someone who would start investigating, following the same trail, making the same connections. Someone like me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emma and I stared at it, both knowing I shouldn't answer. But my hand was already reaching for it. Like I didn't have a choice. Sarah, don't. Too late. I'd already swiped to answer. The voice was familiar but wrong. Like someone doing an impression of someone I used to know. Hello, Sarah. Ready to help us with something important? Emma was saying something, shaking my shoulder, but her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. The only thing I could hear clearly was the voice on the phone. You've done such excellent work finding the others. We're very impressed. There's just one more case we need you to investigate. Who? Who is this? A sound like laughter, but not quite right. You'll understand soon. The last case is very personal. The missing person is someone you know very well. The line went dead. Emma was crying, talking frantically about calling for help, but I was already standing up, already walking toward the door. Because I knew who the last missing person was. It was me. I'd been gone for months, following a voice that wasn't quite human, investigating cases that were designed to lead me exactly where I am. The Sarah sitting in this apartment, talking to Emma, building conspiracy walls. She's just the echo. The shadow left behind to keep people from asking too many questions. The real Sarah Morrison. Sorry, Sarah Mitchell. She disappeared the day she got that phone call. And tomorrow, Emma will file a missing person report. She'll tell the police her sister was investigating disappearances, became obsessed, and then vanished herself. They'll find this apartment empty except for a wall of red string connecting photos of missing women. And eventually, someone else will start investigating. Someone curious about the journalist who disappeared while looking for other missing people. Someone who will get a phone call from a familiar voice that sounds just wrong enough to ignore. I can see Emma through the window now, talking on her phone, probably calling for help. But she's too late. I'm already walking away, looking over my shoulder, following a voice only I can hear, just like all the others. The most terrifying disappearances aren't the ones that happen to strangers. They're the ones that happen to you, slowly, piece by piece, until you realize you've been gone all along.
A signal from the center. I took the night shift at the radio observatory because I needed the money, and because nobody else wanted it. My dog Charlie had been diagnosed with cancer 3 months earlier. The vet bills were crushing me, and when Dr. Martinez at the Arecibo research station offered me the graveyard position, I couldn't say no. It was just me, alone with the massive dish, listening to the universe whisper its secrets. The job was simple enough. Monitor the incoming signals, log anything unusual, and call the day team if something required immediate attention. Most nights it was just cosmic background radiation, the gentle hum of distant galaxies. But that changed on October 15th. I was 3 hours into my shift when the computers started picking up something different. The signal was coming from the center of our galaxy, almost exactly from the heart of the Milky Way. At first, I thought it was just another pulsar, maybe a black hole doing its thing. Then I realized it was pulsing in a pattern. On, off, on, off, on, off, on. I sat there, headphones pressed tight against my ears, watching the waveform dance across my screen. The signal was 100 times brighter than anything we'd recorded before, and it was getting stronger. I followed protocol. I logged it, ran the standard analysis, cross-referenced it with known sources. Nothing matched. This was completely new, and completely unexplainable. When Dr. Martinez arrived the next morning, I showed him the data. His face went pale as he studied the readouts. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "Started around 1 a.m. It's been consistent for 6 hours now." He was quiet for a long moment, then looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear, mixed with something else. Excitement, maybe. Or dread. "David, I need you to promise me something. Don't mention this to anyone else yet, not until we understand what we're dealing with." I nodded, but something cold was already creeping up my spine. The signal continued for 3 more nights. Always the same pattern, always from the exact same coordinates. But on the 4th night, something changed. I was alone in the control room, Charlie sleeping at my feet, when the pattern shifted. Instead of the regular pulses, it became erratic, random. Like someone frantically tapping out a message they couldn't quite remember. That's when I heard it. At first I thought it was just interference, maybe a truck passing on the distant highway. But as I turned up the volume, filtered out the background noise, I realized the signal wasn't just radio waves anymore. There were voices in it. Faint, distorted, like whispers from the bottom of a well. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was unmistakable. Desperate. Pleading. Afraid. I should have called Dr. Martinez. Should have followed protocol. Instead, I did something that still haunts me. I transmitted back. It was just a simple pulse pattern, the same sequence we used to test the equipment. But the moment I hit send, everything in the control room went dead silent. The computers, the air conditioning, even Charlie stopped breathing for a few seconds. Then the signal exploded. The speakers screamed with feedback so loud I ripped the headphones off my ears. Every monitor in the room flickered and went black. Emergency lights bathed everything in hellish red. When the systems came back online 2 minutes later, the signal from the galactic center was gone. But something else had taken its place. A new signal. Closer. Much closer. It was coming from directly above the observatory. I ran outside, leaving Charlie whimpering in the control room. The night sky was clear. Stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. But there, maybe 1,000 feet up, was something that shouldn't have been there. A dark line, perfectly vertical, stretching from the horizon to directly overhead. It wasn't a cloud, wasn't smoke. It was like someone had drawn a black mark across reality itself. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds before my phone started buzzing with emergency calls. Reports were flooding in from all over the county. People hearing strange booms, feeling their houses shake, seeing flashes of light in the sky. The line stayed there for exactly 4 hours. Then, just as the sun began to rise, it faded away like it had never existed. When Dr. Martinez arrived that morning, he found me sitting in the parking lot, staring at the empty sky. Charlie was beside me, trembling. "David? What happened?" The night logs show massive interference around 3 a.m., but I tried to explain. The signal, the voices, the line in the sky. He listened with growing concern, then gently suggested I take a few days off. Maybe see someone. The stress of Charlie's illness, the isolation of the night shift, It could play tricks on a person's mind. But I knew what I'd seen, what I'd heard, and I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. The booms continued for 3 more nights, always around 3 a.m., always accompanied by reports of mysterious lights and sounds. But no one else saw the line. No one else heard the voices, except for the people who started disappearing. It began with Maria Santos, a nurse who lived about 10 miles from the observatory. She'd called 911 the night before she vanished, reporting strange sounds and lights outside her house. The recording was released weeks later, and in the background, barely audible, you could hear it. The same desperate whispers I'd heard in the signal. Then, it was Robert Chen, a construction worker. Jennifer Walsh, a teacher. All of them had called in reports of strange phenomena in the days before they disappeared. All of them lived within a 20-mile radius of the observatory. All of them had been directly under that vertical line. I tried to warn the authorities, tried to explain the connection. But who was going to believe that a radio signal from space was somehow connected to people vanishing into thin air? Dr. Martinez had already recommended I take extended leave, said the isolation and stress were causing episodes of dissociative behavior. Charlie's surgery had been successful, but the bills had driven me into debt so deep I couldn't see daylight. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was losing my mind. But then I found the recordings. Hidden in the observatory's backup servers, buried under layers of corrupted data, were audio files from that night. Files that showed I hadn't imagined anything. The voices were real. The signal was real. And they were getting stronger. The last file was time-stamped 3 days ago. It was just 20 seconds long, but it was clear enough that I could finally make out words. A single phrase, repeated over and over in dozens of different voices. We're still here. We're still here. We're still here. I'm writing this now because I think I understand what happened. What I did when I transmitted back to that signal. I didn't just make contact with something in the center of the galaxy. I gave it a way to reach back. The line in the sky wasn't a phenomenon. It was a doorway. And every time it appeared, it took someone with it when it closed. Tonight, the signal started again. Same coordinates, same intensity. But this time it's not coming from the galactic center. It's coming from my house. Charlie's been staring at the ceiling for the past hour, whimpering softly. The lights keep flickering. And outside my window, I can see the line forming. I should run. Should grab Charlie and drive as far away as possible. But I know it won't matter. Because the signal isn't just reaching out to random people anymore. It's calling for me specifically. The one who opened the door. As I finish typing this, I can hear them clearly now. The voices. They're not desperate anymore. They're welcoming. Like they've been waiting for me to join them. Maybe that's what they were trying to tell us all along. That space isn't empty. That the signals we pick up aren't just natural phenomena. They're invitations. And some invitations, once you are SVP, you can't take back. The line is touching my roof now. Charlie stopped whimpering. I think it's time to go. Fear doesn't always come from the unknown. Sometimes it comes from the moment you realize. The unknown has been watching you back, waiting for you to make the first move.
The wellness check. I became a social worker because I wanted to help people. I never expected to discover that some people don't want to be helped because they're no longer people at all. My name is Dr. Lisa Minoble, and I've been doing wellness checks for Marion County Social Services for 8 years. It's not glamorous work, visiting isolated individuals, checking on their mental and physical health, making sure they're not a danger to themselves or others. Most of the time, it's routine. Elderly people who haven't been seen by neighbors, adults with mental health issues whose families are concerned, people going through difficult life transitions. But Tyler Johnson's case was different from the start. The call came in on a Tuesday morning. Tyler's family was worried about the 28-year-old man who'd been living alone at an abandoned property in the woods. They said he'd been acting strangely, spending increasing amounts of time at the old family house that had no electricity or running water. He's trying to clean it up, his aunt told me over the phone. But it's like he's obsessed. Won't talk about anything else. And lately, he's been saying things that don't make sense. I drove out to the property that afternoon, following a dirt road that wound deeper into the Alabama woods with each mile. The house, when I finally found it, looked like something from a horror movie. Peeling paint, broken windows, vines crawling up the sides like the forest was trying to reclaim it. Tyler's truck was parked outside. I found him walking out of the tree line as I pulled up. Tall, thin, wearing clothes that looked like he'd been sleeping in them for weeks. But what struck me most was his expression. Completely blank, like he was looking through me rather than at me. "Tyler," I called out. "I'm Dr. Manoble from Social Services. Your family asked me to check on you." He stopped walking and stared at me for a long moment. Then, without any prompting, he threw something over his shoulder into the woods and lay down on the ground. I hadn't asked him to do that. Hadn't even approached him yet. "Tyler, are you okay? What did you just throw?" "A necklace," he said, still lying flat on his back, staring at the sky. I spent 20 minutes searching the area where he'd thrown the object. Never found anything. And Tyler just lay there the entire time, perfectly still, like he was waiting for instructions. His behavior was unlike anything I'd encountered in 8 years of social work. Not aggressive, not defensive, not confused. Just empty, like someone had scooped out his personality and left behind a shell. I called his mother, who arrived within an hour to take him to the local hospital. But the whole drive back to town, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something important. Something was very wrong with Tyler Johnson. I didn't hear about him again for 2 weeks. Then his aunt called, voice shaking with worry. "Dr. Manoble, Tyler's missing. He was discharged from the hospital in Tupelo and he's just gone." I drove back to the abandoned property that same day. Tyler's truck was there, along with his backpack and some personal items that looked like they'd been deliberately arranged around the vehicle. But no Tyler. I spent 3 hours searching the woods, calling his name, looking for any sign of where he might have gone. What I found instead was disturbing evidence that someone else had been using the property recently. Strange symbols carved into trees. Circles of stones arranged in patterns I didn't recognize. And in the basement of the abandoned house, a notebook filled with writing in Tyler's handwriting. But the handwriting changed as I read through it. The early entries were normal. Notes about cleaning the house, memories of visiting the property as a child, plans for fixing the roof. Tyler's aunt had been right. He was trying to restore the place. But as the entries progressed, the handwriting became more erratic. The content grew stranger. They're teaching me things I need to know. The old ways are better. The old ways make more sense. Soon I won't need to eat or sleep like before. Soon I'll be ready. The final entry was dated 3 days ago, just before his disappearance. Time to go home. The real home. The one that's been waiting. I reported everything to the Marion County Sheriff's Department, but they seemed more interested in treating this as a routine missing person case than investigating the bizarre elements I'd discovered. Dr. Manoble. People with mental health issues often exhibit strange behavior before disappearing. Deputy Williams told me. The writings, the symbols. It's probably just part of whatever delusion he was experiencing. But I knew this wasn't a typical mental health episode. I'd worked with hundreds of people experiencing psychosis, schizophrenia, severe depression. Tyler's behavior felt different. Controlled. Purposeful. Like he was following instructions from somewhere else. I started researching similar cases in my files, looking for other wellness check subjects who'd exhibited unusual behavior before disappearing. What I found made me realize Tyler wasn't an isolated incident. Margaret Foster, 43, reported missing 4 months ago. I'd done a wellness check on her after neighbors complained about strange activities at her house. I'd found her in her backyard at 3 a.m., digging holes in precise geometric patterns. James Wright, 67, vanished 6 months ago. His wellness check had revealed a man who'd stopped eating regular food, claiming he was learning to subsist on other sources of nourishment. Patricia Santos, 29, missing for 8 months. During my visit, she'd shown me detailed drawings of underground tunnel systems she claimed existed beneath the county. All of them had exhibited the same empty, purposeful behavior I'd seen in Tyler. All of them had disappeared within weeks of my wellness checks. And all of them had mentioned learning new things from unspecified teachers. I began to suspect that my wellness checks weren't just documenting mental health crises. They were documenting some kind of recruitment process. But recruitment for what? Last week, I got another call. Another wellness check request, this time for a woman named Carol Martinez, who lived alone near the state forest. She's been acting strange, her sister told me. Talking about voices in the woods, spending all night outside. We're worried she's having some kind of breakdown. I drove out to Carol's property with a growing sense of dread. The house was isolated, surrounded by dense forest, accessible only by a single dirt road. Just like Tyler's place. Just like all the others. I found Carol in her backyard, standing perfectly still among a circle of carved wooden posts. She was facing the tree line, her back to me, apparently listening to something I couldn't hear. "Carol, I'm Dr. Manoble from Social Services." She turned around slowly, and I saw the same empty expression I'd seen on Tyler's face. The same hollow look I'd noticed in Margaret, James, and Patricia. "I've been expecting you," she said. That phrase sent chills down my spine. None of my wellness check subjects had ever said they were expecting me. "Your sister is worried about you. She says you've been spending a lot of time outdoors." Carol smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm learning things. Important things. Would you like to learn too?" Before I could answer, I heard it. A sound coming from the forest, like voices whispering in harmony just at the edge of audibility. "Do you hear them?" Carol asked. "They're teachers. They've been teaching all of us." I looked around her backyard and realized the wooden posts weren't random. They formed a perfect circle, and each one was carved with the same symbols I'd found at Tyler's property. "Carol, I think we should go inside and talk." But she was already walking toward the forest. "They're calling," she said. "Time for the next lesson." I followed her into the tree line, pulling out my phone to call for backup. But there was no signal. The deeper we went, the louder the whispering became, and I began to understand what I was hearing. It wasn't random sounds. It was instructions. Detailed, specific instructions about how to prepare for the transition. Carol led me to a clearing where dozens of people were standing in precise formations. People I recognized? Tyler Johnson, Margaret Foster, James Wright, Patricia Santos. All the missing subjects from my wellness checks. They were still there, still alive, but changed. Their movements were too synchronized, too purposeful. Their eyes reflected light like animals, and when they spoke, their voices blended together in perfect harmony. "Dr. Manoble," they said in unison. "We've been waiting for you." Tyler stepped forward from the group. "You've been so helpful," he said. "Identifying the candidates, documenting their readiness, preparing them for collection." "I don't understand." Margaret smiled, the same hollow expression I'd seen on Carol's face. "The wellness checks, Dr. Manoble. They weren't to help us. They were to determine if we were ready for recruitment. Every person you visited, every report you filed. It's all been part of the screening process," added James. Patricia nodded. "The strange behavior, the isolation, the mental health concerns. They're not symptoms of illness. They're signs of compatibility." I tried to back away, but Carol was behind me now, blocking my path. Compatible with what? Tyler's smile widened. With us, with the collective, with the new way of being. The whispering grew louder, and I realized it was coming from all of them. Every missing person I tried to help was now part of something else. Something that had been using my wellness checks to identify new members. Your work here is done, Dr. Manoble, Tyler said. Time for you to learn what we've learned. I'm writing this now from my car, parked outside my apartment in town. I managed to escape the forest, though I'm not entirely sure how. One moment I was surrounded by all those changed people. The next I was running through the trees with their harmonized voices echoing behind me. But I know they let me go. Because when I got home, I found a letter waiting for me. Written in Tyler Johnson's handwriting, but somehow different. More precise. More controlled. Hi, Dr. Manoble. Thank you for your service. Your wellness checks have been invaluable in identifying suitable candidates for our community. However, your usefulness in that capacity has ended. It's time for you to join us permanently. You have 48 hours to report to the forest clearing. If you don't come voluntarily, we will collect you. Your transition will be much easier if you cooperate. The collective. It's been 46 hours since I found that letter. I've tried to warn other social workers, tried to report what I've discovered to the authorities. But who's going to believe that missing mental health patients have formed some kind of hive mind in the woods? My supervisor thinks I'm having a breakdown. The sheriff's department thinks I'm creating conspiracy theories to cope with job stress. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am losing my mind. But I can hear them now. The whispers. Getting stronger every hour, calling me back to the forest. And the strangest part is, I'm starting to understand what they're saying. They're not threats. They're invitations. Offers to join something larger than myself. Something that doesn't feel pain or loneliness, or the crushing weight of trying to help people who can't be helped. I have 2 hours left. I should run. Should drive as far away as possible, and never look back. But I won't. Because I realize now that every wellness check I've ever done has been leading to this moment. I was never helping people. I was identifying them for recruitment. And now it's my turn to be recruited. The whispers are getting louder. I can almost make out individual words now. They're beautiful. Time to go. The most insidious evil isn't the one that forces itself upon you. It's the one that makes you believe you're choosing it freely, right up until you realize choice was never part of the equation.